Hey, greetings, everyone. Let's see, do we have attendees coming in? Excellent. We'll give everybody just a minute to come in and get settled. Thank you so much for being here today. We're also going to be um, live streaming on Facebook. I don't know, for people who prefer to see their events that way, but thank you so much for being here on the Zoom. This is really exciting. Excellent. Now the live stream has begun on Facebook. So again, I'll give people just a couple of more seconds really to come in because we're going to also be interpreting um, this event in Spanish. So it'll be available in English and Spanish via the Zoom, and Grisel has an announcement to make about that, a language justice announcement. In a few seconds. I think that we can get started. Yeah, I think that we've got a good number of people now, so we can get started with the language justice announcement, if you wouldn't mind, Grisel. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. So my name is Grisel Granados with the Well Project. And this event today will be bilingual in English and Spanish. So I'll tell you a little bit more about what that will look like in English, and then I'll say it in Spanish and hand it over to our interpreter today. So language justice is based on respecting every individual's fundamental language rights to be able to communicate, understand, and be understood in the language in which they prefer and feel most articulate and powerful. Today, this event or meeting will be held in Spanish and English. And right now, so today we'll be doing simultaneous interpretation. You'll be able to select your language based on what you need. A few concrete things that you can do to support the effective communication with multiple languages is if the person speaking is going too fast, the interpreter will be able to signal to slow down. And so I will support with some of those announcements. So please, follow our instructions if we need you to slow down or if we need you to speak up. That way the interpreter can follow. So I'll try to use some hand gestures as well in order to have you slow down. So I'll type those in the chat in a bit. Please remember to only have one person speak at a time. When more than one person speaks at a time, the interpreters are in the position of having to choose whose voice and privilege we don't want to make that decision. So we'll be adding reminders in the chat, like I mentioned, either to go slower, to speak louder, or to place only one person at a time. I'm going to read it in Spanish now, and then I'll give you the instructions on how to select a language. Buenos días. El evento de hoy lo vamos a hacer bilingüe en inglés y en español. Me llamo Grisel, estoy con parte de The Well Project. La justicia lingüística se basa en el respeto de los derechos lingüísticos fundamentales de cada persona, el poder de comunicarse, comprender y ser comprendido en la lengua en la que prefiere y se siente más competente y poderoso. Hoy este evento se realizará en español y en inglés. La interpretación de hoy será simultánea y les daremos instrucciones en cómo elegir el idioma en un momento. Hay algunas cosas concretas que puede hacer para echar una mano literalmente a la comunicación eficaz cuando hay varios idiomas presentes. Si la persona que habla va demasiado deprisa, la intérprete utilizará algún gesto con la mano. Bueno, más bien no la van a ver, entonces yo voy a poner en el chat si por favor pueden ir más despacio, si pueden repetir algo, o si pueden hablar en voz más alta. Recuerden también que solo debe hablar una persona a la vez. Cuando habla más de una persona a la vez, los intérpretes están en la situación de que tienen que elegir la voz de quien privilegiar y no queremos tomar esta decisión. Yo estaré poniendo recordatorios en el chat para que vayan más lento, para que hablen más fuerte o para que sea una persona a la vez hablando. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the announcement, and the interpretation feature will be turned on shortly. You will be able to see a globe icon. Okay, so you can see the globe icon at the bottom of your computer. Esto nos trae al final de nuestro anuncio y la interpretación ya se activó. Para acceder a los canales de idioma, vaya al icono del globo a la parte inferior de su pantalla de la computadora. If you are on a tablet or a phone, you can also click the globe link. You should be able to see that as well. If you want to listen in English, click on the icon and choose the English channel. You can switch between languages at any time by clicking the icon again. Si desea escuchar en español, haga clic en el icono y elija el canal de español. Y puede cambiar de idioma en cualquier momento al hacer clic nuevamente en el icono. Y también puede ver el símbolo del globo en su teléfono o tableta. And we're happy to be here in solidarity with the Well Project to support this bilingual space. Es un gusto estar aquí en solidaridad con the Well Project para apoyar este espacio bilingüe. Recordatorio, por favor, todos elijan un idioma. Again, if you haven't done so, please select a language. It will enable you to hear the full presentation in the language that you choose. And I'll actually pause for our interpreter today, Susana, if you have any other kind of instructions or announcement that I may have missed. And I don't see any, so I'll hand it back over to Olivia.
All right, can everyone hear me? I'm going to do my best to speak nice and evenly, not speak over anyone, so that Susanna can capture my voice and interpret. And I've chosen English now, just reminding folks so that you can hear to choose the language that you want to hear in. I'm going to quickly, surprise, I'm going to put up a little poll for folks who have gathered and are on the, can everyone see that? For folks who have gathered and are on the Zoom. We're just curious to hear where folks land as far as your experience with birth, postpartum support, and HIV. And it's just, as you're doing that, I'll just quickly say that I'm Olivia Ford, she, her, they pronouns, and I am the editorial director for the Well Project. I am so honored to get to gather everyone here and be part of this event with my comrade Cece from the Well Project staff, who will introduce herself, and also Deandra Willis and Kiana Lewis Arnold from the Afiya Center in Texas, who do amazing. You know what? I'll let you all, if you don't mind, introduce yourselves as we have folks respond to the poll. If you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about, your work in the Afiya Center's work before we kind of launch into questions.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? Well, here it's still morning in Texas. My name is Kiana Arnold. I am a full spectrum doula. I'm also part of the birth justice team here at the Afiya Center, where we're serving the community in a brave way. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Deandra.
Good morning. I'm Deandra Willis. Also with the Afiya Center, work and lead the birth justice, our birth justice work, and the full spectrum doula. And yes, like Kim said, we we serve and lead the community in a brave way. Okay, the poll kind of threw me out. Anyway, so the Afiya Center is a reproductive organization here in Dallas, Texas. We center our work by transforming the lives, health, and overall well-being of Black women and girls by providing refuge, education, and resources by igniting the communal voices of Black women, resulting in our full achievement of reproductive freedom. Me and Kiana and our collective of doulas, we work under Southern Roots Doula Collective, which is underneath the Afiya Center. We're Birth Justice, part of our Birth Justice. We had the pleasure of training, I think it's 10 other community doulas, and just in a way that we serve as a full spectrum doula. I'm sorry, please speak slowly. Yes. So we had the privilege of training 10 other doulas under another one of our sister organization, Ancient Song, in a way of full spectrum, serving as a full spectrum doula because it is different. And we'll talk about that today. So our work our work goes through the full spectrum of reproductive health and how we serve.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm gonna we had 61% participation in this poll. And it looks like I'm gonna share the results quickly if people can see that. It looks like folks have come on with just some experience as to what birth support is. But since there are 39% of folks who didn't respond, I imagine that there may be people who have joined us today who are like, what is a doula? What is birth support, postpartum support? What does this have to do with HIV? And again, it's really, as folks working at the Well Project, working at these intersections of sexual and reproductive health, rights, justice, pleasure, family building, and HIV, to really get a chance to talk about this really important support piece, especially during Black Maternal Health Week, which is happening this week. It's really, again, thank you, Deandra and Kiana, for being here. And I'm going to pass it over to Cece to introduce yourself as well.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Olivia. If I could have participated in the poll, I probably would have said, what even is a doula? Because I feel like I use that word so much, but I don't know necessarily all that a doula encompasses. And I am coming to you as program manager at the Well Project. It's a nonprofit that serves women and girls who are living with and vulnerable to HIV. So excited for this conversation today. I'm excited to learn so much from you all. And back to you, Olivia.
Thank you. So yeah, just per what Cece mentioned, talking about kind of just wanting to know more about what a doula is. Can you all, I would love to have Deandra and Kiana, or Kiana, you can choose, just start to talk about what is a doula anyway. And yeah, just kind of to kick off the conversation.
Okay. So we're honored always to serve this week, being that it is Black Maternal Health Week. And so we love to have conversations of like, what is a doula? Because even serving as community doulas, we do realize that a lot of people in our community don't even know what a doula is. And we can give you like the short answer, which is just to make it relatable, what a doula is someone in your family, like if you identify somewhere in your family that supported like all the pregnant, people in your family, the go-to person in your family, that's really like a definition when you think about culturally what is a doula. But if you want to know about the text part, book definition, a doula is a trained professional, non-healthcare trained professional that support birthing people, well, just really people in form of emotional support, physical support, mental support, and that can look like through childbirthing, before conception, infertility, childbirthing, postpartum, termination, end of life. We just recently met a deaf doula. So people that have different abilities and they're still birthing, they have doulas that specifically work for them. I think just to highlight the importance of why a full spectrum community Black doula is important for Black birthing people, especially the people that we serve, are because the main thing is going to be the advocacy piece of knowing the experience, like the lived experience of a Black birthing person, being able to advocate for that. Because not all the time do your doula get a chance. Well, I'm gonna say not all the time do Southern Roots doula get a chance to go in and just be there for childbirth. We have identified like some of the most important parts of where we need to be, which would be postpartum, but it's life before, life during pregnancy, life after pregnancy, and life in between before you call us again for the second pregnancy. So we are the doulas that like doula life for our folks. And I'll give it to Kiana to kind of share a little bit more. All right.
And so what we do know is that many doulas now are trained professionals. And so just like Deandra said, we hold you for the full spectrum of life. And so you'll hear terms like birth doula, postpartum doula, full spectrum doula. And so we are what you call full spectrum doulas. So whereas a birth doula is a person that their practice completely focuses on holding a person during their pregnancy, during their labor, during their delivery, and then that's the end of their journey with the person. A postpartum doula is a person that kind of picks up the journey after you deliver your baby, right? We are full spectrum community doulas because we know that the community that we serve is different and they need for us to advocate for them in a different way. We don't have the luxury of just showing up in a person's life just for a birth and then just leaving them there, because what we do know is we historically lose more Black women to mortalities and morbidities during the postpartum period anyway. And that's just not how life works for us. Life is be really lifing for us. So we use the full spectrum community doula model where we literally hold folk throughout their entire lifespan. And so what we do know is your reproductive life starts at birth, right? And so literally when we have a new baby, we're connected to that family in a way where we are a person that you can tap in all of that girl or boy's life. And once a person starts entering their years where their body is changing and they're maturing, then we're able to have other conversations and we're able to offer more comprehensive sex education to the developing person and to their family, right? And then from there, when folks are deciding not to have children, we can help them decide not to have children. If folk are deciding to have children, we can support them with that. So all the way through the end of life, we have parents who lose their children and we still hold their hand. We have folk, full spectrum doula work also sometimes consists of relationships with families where you're literally that person in their life when a family member is transitioning from earthside. So what we do know is for Black community, we need people to safely hold space for us throughout every part of life so that we survive and we're able to thrive in a way that we deserve to.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that. No, like so many things just popped up in my head as you all were talking, because I've literally always associated a doula with like being in the room while you give birth, or that's one of those people that are there when you have a water birth at home, which I know I'm wrong. Ain't I wrong?
Right. We support everywhere. So like I said, full spectrum community doulas, you meet folk where they're at. Right. And you have to be able to meet folk when we're in Black Maternal Health Week and we're talking about how we're serving the Black community. And so you have to be capable of meeting folk where they're at. And what we do know is having an out-of-hospital birth is often a luxury, period. It's a luxury. And then sometimes having an out-of-hospital birth just is impossible because there are different pre-existing conditions, and it's just safer for us to have you in a hospital where we can manage your birth in a way that best serves you and the person that you're birthing. So no, we support you at the hospital, at home. Hell, we support you on the bathroom floor. We just had to do it. the car, wherever, like just joking, but we support you, where you're at, birth centers, home, whatever that looks like, because also Black women deserve to have those options. We can afford to have an out-of-hospital birth. We deserve that. Right. We deserve to experience that too. And so we're going to support that. But something that's important that Deandra and I do, because we're trained and we try to stay current on everything, we're able to offer our clients evidence-based information. So we're able to hold a space that it holds space for them in a way that keeps them safe. We're giving them information and education that is researched, tried and true. We're not yes, we do also still lean on some of our proven right ancestral beliefs, because some of those are also very important, and those are also the truth as well. But we also offer evidence-based solutions.
I think too, since you brought that up, another unique thing is, so as a community doula, I think for the last like maybe 2 or 3 years, we've been having to like dismantle this whole picture of what a doula is, from like Cece, what you have gathered, what a doula is and how it's romanticized and how it's only for those that deserve it. But being able to identify that, no, you need it like you need air. You need it. Black women need it like they need air, like they need water. It is essential to their birth. That's either in the hospital or out of the hospital. But also understanding, like with the way, like our model that we use, we don't just support the mom, we support a birthing person, we support the whole entire birthing team, because life happened for us. Like the Afiya Center, we are the folks that we serve. So life can happen for us. Yes, we have created a model where we have more than one doula that are there at the birth, but life happens for us. So we don't have to be so, we don't have to fret if we don't make it and the mom, like the dad or the partner or the, whoever's there can't support. We've had situations where it's moving really fast and we can talk to whoever's there, the partner, and because they already know what to expect, they're able to communicate with us, as we're on our way, or maybe if the midwife call or the doctor call, and be able to identify after postpartum some things that you need to be watching for, that we know we are losing some of our birthing people doing, with maternal mortality. They're able to understand, able to communicate it and not ignore it. Those are things that we value, is like the education of our birthing team, not just the birthing person, because we know when you're in labor, you don't want to answer nothing. You don't know, like you forget. Everybody can't advocate for themselves at the whole entire, the whole time the labor is going on. But it's important that the team understands. So it's not just about like a doula show, I'm here to catch a baby in the water. No, what happens before they go to the hospital, and really what happens after the baby is here.
That's the most important. I don't know if you want us to answer a question, but I saw a question pop up in the chat and I thought this was just a good moment to answer. So someone asked, what was the difference between a doula and a midwife? And I know we have questions, but I just wanted to give that background before we continue to talk about doula and our work and get to the point where we're connecting it with the HIV part. So what we do know is, so your midwife is your trained medical professional, right? So your midwife actually provides your prenatal care. So if we had to compare your midwife to someone, that would be equivalent to having your OB. And then your doula shows up with the emotional support, the education, the physical support. We're your advocate. I'm sorry, let me slow down. So your doula shows up with emotional support. We're your advocate. We hold space for you, and we offer education. We help implement your birth plan. And we're usually that person that's like the frontline fighter for you. So example, if you were in a hospital space, the example I give folk is for Black women, like you don't go to court without an attorney.
Right.
Because the system is unsafe for us at this point, considering the statistics, the hospital isn't safe for us. So I always suggest that you go into the hospital with an advocate, even if it's not a trained doula. What we do know is historically we birthed just fine when we had a mama, auntie, or someone, a best friend who showed up to hold space to advocate for us. So yeah, so your midwife is actually your clinical provider. And so your midwife or your doula, we kind of work in tandem, taking care of you during your birth. Sometimes folk use a midwife out of the hospital. That's usually a licensed midwife. If you're using a midwife in the hospital, that's usually a certified nurse midwife. The doula works in all of the spaces.
Right.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up, especially since oftentimes the terms doula and midwife are used. Some people find themselves using them interchangeably or not kind of understanding that distinction. And while certainly I've seen and I imagine that midwives also are not kind of removed emotionally. They also are emotionally supportive. Doulas are there to support the birthing person, their family, in that kind of advocacy role. I realize I didn't say at the top of the event, I'll come out now and say that I actually also trained as a doula almost 20 years ago now. The time that I trained was 2004. I was in my early mid-20s. And at the time, it's been really wonderful. I'll skip ahead. It's been wonderful to hear to the way that that term has become more, it's become more common to have a doula or to desire one. It's become that model of practice and presence, which again, Black folks just across the board have been filling this role for comrades, people in their community, women and other birthing people in their communities since people have been giving birth, since time immemorial. But really kind of to see that people are really stepping into that space as professionals and recognizing the importance of that kind of model of presence is just has just been really beautiful to see. It's never been my main job, but I have attended I've attended people's labors and births. The thing that I'm hearing from y'all, making that, just really giving that beautiful description, and that that kind of tracks with my experience as well, is that it's really like protecting the agency and the power of the kind of unit that's bringing this life into the world, this birthing person, the folks that are
Exactly.
they're kind of whoever is there who's going to be kind of playing a role in that person's birth and in that child's life, really particularly in, if it's not, and the opportunity, if there's not the opportunity to have that birth at home, have that water birth, if it's in a hospital setting, which many of our folks are giving birth in hospitals. I've attended quite a few hospital births. That role becomes all the more important, as you were, touching on too.
Exactly.
Just protect that agency. And again, I mean, you talked about evidence-based practice. The evidence shows, I mean, I've seen kind of quotes about, it would be considered malpractice to deny doulas to people if doulas were a medicine, and
Right.
the outcomes, and
Right.
the outcomes that have improved with the support of doulas were the outcomes of a pill. It would be considered malpractice
Right.
not
Right.
to provide that to birthing people,
Right.
because go ahead.
And I often encourage people, so we are, when we're talking about doula care for Black families, we often give a lot of focus and attention to the maternal mortality rates and keeping folk alive. But we also just know that we deserve to feel good and loved on during birth. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not just that, it is that, but also we deserve that kind of medicine that just makes us feel good, that just makes us feel loved and supported, that makes us feel safe.
Right. And I also like listening to y'all talk just made me think about even those that are on this webinar now and that are doulas, are in training to become a doula, that we remember that we're there to build collective power to keep the autonomy of the person that's birthing. So many times, we have experienced birthing people who the doula have overshadowed the birth, or the midwife have overshadowed the birth, or the hospital has overshadowed the birth. And so we have to always keep in mind that the ultimate common denominator here that is most important is that birthing person, because statistics have also shown that if that birthing person feels supported and is confident, and they truly know and is comfortable with advocating for themselves, that they will have a better outcome of that birth, and they are able to speak to their healthcare provider at that time in the hospital about the things that they do want and they don't want. And a doula is only there in those moments to remind, to encourage that. Remember, this is what we talked about. This is, this is what you said. These are your desires. Too many times I have seen doulas go in and speak for the birthing person. So we, make sure that during those consultations with those meetups with our birthing people, that we remind them, like, we are not your voice when you have the voice, but we're your voice when your voice is not in the space, in the room. So, and just really helping them understand, like, the dynamic of your provider and you. Don't let them bully you. Don't be intimidated. Like, you have the right to say, you have the right to walk, you have the right to really give input on, like, what your care is going to look like. But we have to be sure that we are keeping and uplifting autonomy of that birthing person as a doula. And I think that's really why it has become so romanticized, because now when you think about a doula, like, just because we do a lot of community work, I can't afford that. I can't do this, I can't do that. And it's like, no, I hate that the media has made it seem like it's something that you're not deserving of or that you can't afford. By the grace of God, and that's just me, but anyway, we are very grateful for the Afiya Center and Miss Marsha for the model that she has put here in place for the Southern Roots Doula Collective, where we are, pretty much we have a salary and we're able to serve without having to think about, like, how our bills are going to get paid, if we have enough mommies that month to cover our bills. If life happened to one of us, we are secure financially, that we can serve in a way that we don't have to start counting people as numbers and counting births, so we can give our full capacity and all of ourselves to our birthing people. Right. Thankful to the Afiya Center for even paying for 10 other community people, community folks to be certified or trained as community doulas. So when the load gets too heavy for us, we have other doulas that we know have been trained like us, and we continue to keep in communication with, that we can send, our community to. Because it's not always safe for us to send community outside of community. It's not always safe for them. So
that's why it's also important that when you all are seeing in your state all this different legislation up that's centering doulas being able to be reimbursed by Medicaid, like, those things are very important. Because most doulas, it's a labor of love anyway, but they deserve to be compensated. And so when you put them in a position where they're either having to jeopardize the level of care that they give folk because they got to take too many folk in 1 month to make a bill, or they have to stop serving because they're not getting can't figure out how to get enough work, so they have to go do something else. That's a disservice to our community. That's a disservice to the work. So I just want to lift that up. I know we need to transition to the next questions, but when you all are seeing that legislation, like, that's really important. What Deandra said, we are privileged that we have an organization that pays us like that, and it allows us to serve in an amazing way. And we've never lost a family because we're able to give them our all and just give them everything. But not all doulas have that privilege. That's a privilege, especially for a Black doula, because most Black doulas aren't doing it out of just hobby.
Right. Most of them are doing it because of a crisis. And then, like, I think any Black doula I've heard why they started, it's always out of crisis. It's always out of a bad experience on why they started. And so most often you're doing it out of love, but life still happens and you still, need. I remember my first, after being trained, my first, mom I supported, and I had my fee or what I'm a charge. And then boom, she got put out, she homeless. So it's just like, well, Deandra, if you really feel like this is a ministry, this is where your calling is, how could you really not serve this mom because she can't pay or, cover the fee? And so a lot of people, a lot of Black doulas feel that impact of my kids got to eat, but this mama really needs me. This birthing person really needs me. So it's really important that we make sure that if you are in a state where legislation is going around about doula support, that the doulas, more specifically the community doulas and all doulas, have a voice in what that legislation will look like for your state, because we don't want it to be like with granny midwives, how they were erased out of our history because of how medicine came in and certification came in and old policing came in, and now we don't hear anything about granny midwife. We have to be very careful as doulas. Now that it's a buzzword, it's a popular thing to do, everybody wants to be one. We be sure that we protect, we protect ourselves and protect our work.
I have a question. I see one that's coming from the chat, but a question. So I heard earlier on, you talked about how when a child starts to get older and body starts changing and all of those things, those are services that can be provided. Like I have a 12-year-old who needs to be talked to about his changing body and stuff. And sometimes I'm not the right person. Are those services that can be provided by a what is it called? A full spectrum doula?
A full spectrum doula. So we offer what you call comprehensive sex education. And so what comprehensive sex education looks like for our community is not just talking about, this is a vagina, this is a penis, and if you do this with these two organs, then you could get pregnant. No, it's talking about real stuff. We get all the way down to like how to have safe, pleasurable sex, how to have safe, pleasurable sex if you're a person living with HIV, how to have sex in the way that you prefer, right? How to communicate how you identify on the inside, how to care for your body. So our sex education is a little different. It's like really like, it's not surface. It's really like in depth. We talk in detail about different types of birth control, like what it means for your body, what should you take, what should you look for, how to advocate for yourself, how to access an abortion if you need one, what is an abortion, how to we talk about ovulating, we talk about your cycles, we talk about your developing bodies, and we give the same information to a young man that we give to a young woman, down to like, look, this is just like me, but something that I'm super particular about, like I teach the young boys about every part of a vagina, because you would be surprised. I learned early on when we get to childbirth education and I start talking about where the baby's coming from. And ain't nobody know how many holes existed. That's all I'm gonna say. And so, you know what I mean? So comprehensive sex education is important because, we can make light of it, but when you in a space where you have to advocate for your body, your family, or somebody in your family has been abused, and you can't have a real conversation about what happened because you've nicknamed things and you don't understand your anatomical makeup, that's a problem. And that's a problem in our community. So yeah, we can't offer that.
Now let's put a disclaimer. Not all full spectrum doulas offer it. But I think even just again, speaking to any doula that's on here, as a doula, you're able to speak towards that. I can say like with full spectrum doula and just being trained as a doula, any type of doula any training you do as a doula, you're gonna get like all full training of like the body, the makeup, the baby, all of that. So it is up to you on how you need to serve your community, right? You have to understand what the need is in your community to serve. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a full spectrum doula that teaches it that way. You just teach it because you know it. You're getting the information. I think somebody asked, what background do you need to be a doula? It's not really a background. I was an educator and I'm a hairstylist. Kiana did, what did you do?
I worked in managed care and government insurance for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I went to nursing school.
Right. So it's people that it's all. We met a lady in Austin, and she is with like a chief of staff, and she was like, I want to be a doula, so it's no particular background. I only thing I would say is a background of compassion, a background of the active listener. That's what you need, to successfully, really be able to serve someone.
We work from a reproductive justice lens, as we said in the beginning. We're a reproductive justice organization. So we know reproductive justice includes rights, the rights to refuse any type of maternity care and access this care from a respectful and culturally appropriate provider, right? And so when we talk about we're a birth justice team, and so I think this is kind of leading into some of the next questions. Birth justice is a movement specifically led by Black women and women of color. And what we seek to do is recognize the inequalities and empower people in the community, in pregnancy, and in the birth process and after. So the reason why we work like that from that framework is because of maternal mortality, right? And because of inequality, and because of systemic racism, and because of sexism, and because of all these different isms and phobias.
Yeah, absolutely. And that does kind of segue into the next question. And also really, just to make sure that with the time that we have left, we get a few minutes to tell people for the first time, and for those who don't know, and for those who would like an update on the Jackson family's case, we can have y'all touch on that if you don't mind. But again, just thank you all so much for your work at the Afiya Center, especially it being in Texas, at the front lines of really, in so many ways, in the US, although we've got a number of front lines in different states of really disrespecting the power of Black people, stripping away the agency of people who can give birth, of people who can get pregnant, really across the reproductive spectrum. This work around protecting and uplifting those voices is so important, and we definitely understand. Again, I want to connect it a little bit to our work at the Well Project, working around specifically around HIV and infant feeding, specifically around that piece of the birthing person's decisions for their own bodies, for their own children, are central. And that's really what keeps kind of, just by way of introduction, kind of screaming out at me in hearing about the Jackson family's case right there in your area of Dallas, in your area of Texas, that this idea that doctors, that institutions can kind of name what is best for birthing people's bodies, for their families, for children, to the detriment of those families.
Right.
I mean,
so if I can go ahead and lift it up.
Please go ahead. Yeah, no more interruptions.
I'll lift it up real quick and make it fast because I know we're running out of time. So I first want to lift up, this is day 15, and Mila Jackson is still not with her family. She's with a family that the family knows nothing about, or she's at CPS. We're not sure. So the facts are that Mila Jackson was born at home, surrounded by her family, her brothers, her dad, her mom. They invested a lot of money and a lot of time into having a home birth. This was a home birth after 2 cesareans. They researched, they had a well-vetted, licensed midwife and she had a successful vaginal birth after 2 C-sections. Mila's family lives a very healthy life. They are very aware of everything that they eat and they put in their body. She was a healthy baby. What we do know is sometimes Black babies period, but quite often we see it with Black babies. Usually that 24, 48-hour period, we'll see them set up some jaundice, right? The baby did set up some jaundice. They consulted with their midwife. She was FaceTiming, monitoring them. They went in, the Jackson Family Trust, the healthcare system. They went in, took their baby to their actual pediatrician that they have a long-term relationship with from their older children. The baby was seen. The baby was given a clean bill of health. Later that night, they received a message that said there was some jaundice, that the labs were higher than what they thought. They were like, okay, the doctor gave her some options of how to manage the jaundice. The family was like, cool, that sounds good. That sounds like what the midwife said: breastfeed, sunlight, watch it for 24 hours. If it's not better, take her to the emergency room. So Jackson said, okay, we'll talk about this with our midwife, but we're keeping this baby in our midwife's care. From there, something shifted. And within hours, like about 11:30 at night, the doctor said, I've held a bed at the hospital. If you don't take them, I'm calling CPS. So the family, and I'm saying the family they felt like there was some sort of retaliation because they rejected his care versus sticking with the midwife that they trusted for this child. Fast forward, CPS ended up coming. 6 constables attacked her husband, arrested him, took his keys, entered the home, took Mila out of the mother's arms, gave her an affidavit that had another family's name, a family that has a history with CPS, a violent history with CPS. And so at that point, now you have a mother that feels like her child has been kidnapped because you took the wrong people's child. Again, this is in a family that has a history with CPS. We at this point, it's starting to feel like just a long political game that we're trying to figure out. But ultimately, this baby needs to be safe at home with her family. The baby has developed some health issues since being out of her family's care. The baby was stripped from breastfeeding. She was exclusively breastfed. Parents have only seen her not even a handful of times. They've had like 3 visits.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the facts. That's what's going on. I'll let Deandra kind of tell you where we're at and what are some of the call to actions.
Absolutely. So just also the Afiya Center is a part of the case because we are a reproductive justice organization that since I work with through advocacy and policy, and we do know like this is needed advocacy. This is a direct attack on like their birth justice. And what was crazy, if people don't know that Maternal Health Week, why it is founded, the reason for it is to build awareness, activism, community building, and amplify the voices of Black lived experience, right? And I was reading yesterday, the theme of this year's maternal health was Our Bodies Belong to Us, Restoring Black Autonomy and Joy. And speaking to the family yesterday, and I was just like, goodness, that's the theme. How do y'all feel? Like, this is yesterday was a day that we were supposed to be really honoring and feeling joy in what this week holds, but y'all can't experience that. It was day 14 and y'all have no joy, and your autonomy was fully stripped in this matter, and it just fully stripped altogether in your decision that you wanted to make for your family. So we are asking, and we first thank the community for the loud outcry that has happened, the support that has been pouring in, but we also have call to actions that are on our Afiya Center Facebook page that you can follow and help support, which anybody can do. You don't have to be here in Dallas, and that's just calling different offices that's going to help amplify the voice of We Need Mila Home today. We also have a defense justice fund that is helping with the legal fees for getting Mila home. As Kiana said, we at day 15, Mila is not home. Mom and dad has only seen her maybe 3 times. So we know that when she come home, it's still a long road and journey ahead of us. Right. And so the Jacksons are going to need full support in just being able to find justice for the whole entire situation, because there's so many different parties that are involved in this. They were wrongfully and unjustly had their baby kidnapped from them. And so we're asking folks to just follow our social media, to really stay ahead of how it's moving. On tomorrow we will be live because we are having a rally and protest tomorrow. We're just making noise, like, just going from advocacy to activists and making some actions happen.
Please share. It'll be live on our Facebook. Please share, and it'll be live on our Instagram. I want to just connect back to, we're talking about doula care. We have a Black woman in a state with a high maternal mortality rate for people doing their postpartum period, who is in her early postpartum period, who has not got to rest, who's not got to take care of her stitches, any part of her recovery. None of that. And she is literally up and down the highway every day trying to fight to get her daughter back. So I want you all to also hold Mila's mom in your prayers, because they're going through a lot. And I want, as you all watch this move, I want you to keep in mind that just like when you see Black men and women murdered in this community, in the streets, and then we see systems create a narrative to make them deserving, I just want you all to keep that in mind as you watch this unfold. And always go back to the original story, because those are the facts. But the exact same thing is going to happen. It's happening to this family.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for lifting that up, both the facts and also in that particular way, because the fact that we're hearing about Mila Jackson and her family, and there's the opportunity to respond and make calls, shows the power of that. It's like folks having the opportunity to sort of, in a sense, apply that doula model and apply some advocacy for this family. It doesn't repair or heal the fact that they're not able to have that postpartum space and that time and that bubble, but it does show that power of advocacy that needs to be summoned and is so essential sometimes to save our lives and save our babies' lives. And I think also that's something that's powerful about this family story, is that I get the sense, not having spoken to them, but hearing about the story, that they recognize, having had 2 previous hospital births, we need to do this with a trained professional on our own terms, in our own home, and get the support that we know is going to be best for us. Because we also know that oftentimes, again, I'll frame in the affirmative, having support professionals if a hospital birth has to happen can help save lives during the birthing process, in the immediate postpartum process. And that's a line that doulas hold, and that's right. And the sort of folks who are dedicated and trained around that support piece do hold. And holding that, this segues a little bit. I'm wondering if folks have questions, by the way. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat box, you can put them in the Q&A box, or you can use the icon to raise your hand, have your hand raised, and one of us can put you off mute and you can use your voice to ask your own question. But also, I think of kind of that support role as holding for anyone who's giving birth.
For anyone, right. Yeah. And I know we're here talking particular about Black people living with HIV. And so we know that across the board, Black people experience racism, sexism, a reaction to their poverty. We experience violence when we're going into healthcare settings. And then you add on top of that a diagnosis of some sort. You know what I mean? It just like multiplies. And that's why it's so important that folk in our community who are living with HIV, they have support from doulas that they have trained evidence-based information. Like it's important that that's not a population we play with. that they have this kind of information from trained doulas, trained midwives, trained community workers to help them navigate their appointments, to help them take care of their body. Because what we do know is that a person living with HIV can get pregnant, they can have a successful birth, and then they have the right to choose how they want to live with that child. And if that looks like possibly breastfeeding, if that looks like not breastfeeding, if that looks like choosing to have a vaginal birth versus a C-section, that they have the right to have all the information around those choices, right? Then they have a right to be supported through those choices, and they have the right to safely be able to access the healthcare that they deserve to bring that their desire to life, right?
Right.
And so I know that that's a major part of what we're here to talk about today and how that connects to our work. And so at the Afiya Center, because we are reproductive, we work from a reproductive justice lens. That is an important part of our work. Our work was founded in response to the disparities of Black women living with HIV. Right. And so a full spectrum doula, we look at our work in our community, folk living with HIV. We don't have a different model of care because they're living with HIV. We have the same model of care because the same model of care is what's going to keep any person, especially any Black person with anything going on, safe, because we're facing the same stigmas. And what we've learned is that if we educate our folk, if we help our folk plan, if we're ready to advocate for our folk, if we're ready to continue to be a voice in the community and teach our folk how to advocate for themselves, then we're able to help them have the experiences that deserve, but more than anything, keep them healthy and alive when they're trying to have these experiences.
Right. Definitely understanding that the model of care, again, like I said, not different. It's just what the birth plan will be different. That's the only thing that'll be different is the birth plan that will be different. Your care plan will be different. The advocacy may be a little different depending on what the case is. Because again, I don't even think or know if there's any data out there with as relates to maternal mortality and Black women dying that's living with HIV. I do also know that the cesarean rate is up because misinformation is being given to folks living with HIV and what their options are in birthing. And I know some research of us like getting ready to like doing some research around how many women were stripped of their ability to be a parent, their reproductive justice, like that ability to parent was stripped because of misinformation or because you didn't hear them out or providers chose not to give them their options and made the options for them
And the
made
shame
the care
and
plan
stigma.
and the shame and stigma around if I choose to birth, if I choose to breastfeed, all of that is a part in like why, and I'm not gonna say all full spectrum do it because it's important that folks know what their options are. The education webinars like this are important for people to know and understand that when you do, have you a doula or hire you a doula, these are the things that I need you to serve me the way I need you to serve me. These are the things that's most important to me. And you match your doula to what you need, not what your doula can give.
When we talk about reproductive justice, there's a tagline on the end. If you look at the textbook definition, and it says free from state-sanctioned violence, right? And so we live I live in Texas, so we live in a state where folks living with HIV are still criminalized for having pleasurable sex, right? And it's not all of these, did they disclose? Yeah, they could have. They are still criminalized for having pleasurable sex. But we're also living in a world where we're being told that if we're taking these certain medications like we're supposed to, and that we're undetectable and we're not able to transmit, then we should be able to have sex in a way that we desire. But then we live in spaces where we're being criminalized for having sex in a way that brings pleasure. And so we have to deal with that. Black folk are already over criminalized, and so you layer that with I'm Black, I'm living with HIV. Now I show up pregnant,
or I'm choosing to terminate,
or I'm trying to terminate. We also live in a state where you criminalize if you terminate your pregnancy. So you know, there's so many different challenges that when we talk about a Black birthing person living with HIV, that they have to consider. And quite often it's just the shame, the stigma, the violence, and the possibility of criminalization that steers their choices.
And I can tell you all, as I know that we're right at time, there is a Black woman living with HIV who has given birth to 2 children while living with HIV. The services that I have heard today, the knowledge, the expertise would have been something I would have fully benefited from in that space. Being in a hospital room, drugged up, you know, because your body's getting prepared to bring a human into this world. Having to still advocate for your space, yourself in that time is so exhausting, and it's something that I wish that I could give back. So thank you so much for what you all do and continue to do. Thank you all, the Afiya Center, for all that you're doing for the community. You know, we keep the Jackson family uplifted, and thank you all so much for being here with us during Black Maternal Health Week. I'm going to hand it back to Olivia.
Thank you, CC.
Thank you for having us.
You pretty much said it. Thank you all so much. This conversation is a little bit of a dream come true. I'm so glad to really speak to this intersection of birth support and HIV, and it's been such a pleasure and such a privilege to have you both here and be part of this conversation with the 3 of y'all. And there's some links in the chat to fill out the survey. There's English, there's in Espanol as well. And yeah, I'll just, to close, I want to go back quickly to something that you said, Kiana, about people deserve to feel good while they're giving birth. And I think that as far, you know, just in general and specifically around supporting people living with HIV in the room and labor and birth is really holding that place where it, in general, until it becomes that, birth is not a medical event. Birth is power. We've all been we've been doing it since the human race began.
It's as natural as your cycle.
Thank you. Exactly. And it's an intense time, but there's intense beauty and intense joy there. And part of the work that I see y'all doing and part of the work of doulas is really holding that space for that, the pleasure in it, the joy in it, the part that medical systems can't and ought not touch.
Right.
Thank y'all so much for being here. Please fill out the survey.
Thank you for having us today.
Thank you
We
so much.
appreciate the Wells partnership.
Bring Mila home.
Bring Mila home. Bring Mila home.
Today.
Absolutely. Mila
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Take good care. All right. Thank y'all for being here. We're now going to end the event. And yes, there will be recordings afterwards. We'll circulate them. We'll put them up on our website. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Susanna, for interpretation. And yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Cece. Always a pleasure to be anywhere with you. Thank you so much.